let's talk about the budget thing. I'm not going to editorialize on the budget, but we are getting a less than 1% or around 1% increase against, and even to get to there, and that's already, we're already using $4.5 million of one-time funds just to balance the budget. Before the mayor decided not to give us the 9.5, we could have gotten under the tax cap. So clearly, there's work going on in this office right now, here, since we're here at the district, looking at cuts and where cutbacks may happen, and I wanted the issue of that on this at this meeting today, and it's a little just to address it somehow, because the full board will meet on Monday night, and on the full board, my understanding is that various options will be put on the table to the full board about where cuts might be, and those will include significant things across the district. And so therefore, when we look at sport, I know we were going to expand some sports next year, and so I'm not. There's nothing to be telegraphed here. The only thing to be known at this meeting, sitting here on Wednesday morning, somebody help me, what date is it? The 9th of April. The first time that the Board of School Committee, who will make the first decisions, will meet to talk about this is on April 14th. A meeting which, by the way, is on at the Arts Building, at the French Building, not at City Hall, which is a whole other thing. That's next Monday night. But in anticipation of what might happen, I'm thinking that the expansion we were going to have may be one of the things that is looked at. Could you just enumerate that? Just what was that expansion going to look like? What were the things we were looking at adding?
So if you look at that proposed athletics budget, it's a little misleading where you see the $90,000 addition to salaries. That technically wasn't two salaries. So the $90,000 and the $18,000 were addition to sports offerings in the city of Manchester. The $90,000 included offering middle school baseball, softball, wrestling, unified basketball at the middle school level, and unified track at the high school level.
Can you repeat those again?
All right, sorry. The $90,000 was for middle school baseball, middle school softball, middle school wrestling, middle school unified basketball, and then high school.
I want to just, if I may, I want to note we are funding our middle school baseball and softball program this year with the grant from the Red Sox Foundation.
Correct.
So while it has expanded this year, the permanent expansion was, with funding was going to be next year.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we didn't get, and I want to just emphasize, because sometimes, with the best efforts of our friends at Manchester Public Television and in broadcasting this, and stuff goes forward and people say, oh, they've decided to take something. No decision has been made. We're discussing. Because I think we should all know, and the public should know what these things are likely to be. So if there was a reduction of 90,000, it would affect what our existing programs being grant funded by the Red Sox Foundation for baseball and softball at middle schools, and then it would the wrestling.
Middle school wrestling.
Is that grant funded today, or we were going to?
No. So this year we worked with MPAL, and they provided use of their facility at no rental charge, so that we could run the program this year to see what we had for an interest level, and then plan on how this would look going into a tri-county actually competition piece. So that was adding middle school wrestling to the state competition piece.
Right. And sadly, $90,000 isn't going to get us very far down the road to what is effectively $9.5 million less than what we need. It's 0.01% if my old math works. Any questions from the board before I go further? So let me ask this. This is very difficult to talk about in a school district which has historically not funded athletics at the level that other school districts do. And sometimes, because I say this often, I think it loses effect, right? People say Jim's got one bell and he keeps ringing it, and I'm aware of that, but it's just true, right? So when choices are going to be made, difficult choices, when kids on special needs are not going to get services, when, you know, social workers who are already overworked in our district are going to, when we don't have enough nurses in our schools, when we, all the other challenges that we have difficulty hiring people into positions. Our teachers are going to end up with larger class sizes, it seems, so the decisions are not made. So sports is going to be right there, athletics is going to be right there in the crosshairs. One of the things that has been resisted in this district, and nobody, at least I presume around this table, would agree. What happens if we were to eliminate athletics and go to a pay-to-play model? Like, what does that mean if we go to pay-to-play? No, I'm not suggesting we should do it. I'm just saying if you're trying to find 9.7 million, you're not finding it in bits of 50,000 here and there. So I know we could all just rail on about pay-to-play, but what I've never heard a discussion. What would pay-to-play mean in this district?
So, I think you would have a serious equity concern, and I think the school district should be prepared for legal action if you go to a pay-to-play. That's
okay.
My legal background, talking on that one, not my athletic background, but my legal background. I think when you
and just for those who don't know, Ms. Tez does have a legal background. She is an attorney.
I think that's something that needs to be seriously considered. Now, some school districts do pay-to-play, very affluent, not with the free and reduced lunch numbers that the city of Manchester has. Hanover High School, which has a free and reduced lunch rate of probably under 5%, do pay-to-play. Pinkerton has some of their sports pay-to-play. Nashua's probably the closest when it comes to free and reduced lunch. Not as much as the city of Manchester. They do have some sports that are pay-to-play. For instance, hockey, because hockey is an extremely expensive sport. So there are options to do it for certain sports. Certain sports do require a financial support system by a family to participate in. And I think everybody, knows that. Hockey is one of them. Skiing is another one of them. We do offer those sports. You could possibly put that on the table for some of those sports. But in general, in the city of Manchester, our highest level sports, track and field, basketball, soccer, the majority of our kids do not have the financial ability to pay to play. And it would be putting them at a severe disadvantage in the city of Manchester if we did that across the board.
And of course, of course, in those teams that have struggled to maintain numbers, I don't know what the result. I could imagine a pretty catastrophic drop-off in people being able to play. I know that, and go back to Manchester North Soccer, the season was $50. I think it might still be $50 or $60 for a season. And as I said many times at those meetings, that $50 was like $49 higher than some parents could afford, and people couldn't. So it didn't matter. It was only $50 for 2 months when people are trying to put food on a table. It can't be done. Mr. Rensdale.
I was just going to provide just a little general data. Without including the departmental overhead, just the direct costs for operations of the sports team, coaching, and coaching uniforms, all of those pieces. We have roughly 3,840 team spots in a year that we offer. That includes elementary basketball right on through everything. If you just do the math on that, the average cost to subsidize existing sports is about $465 per player per sport. And that doesn't take care of your transportation, it doesn't take care of all those different pieces. So when we talk about pay to play, even the districts that are doing pay to play, in my experience, are supporting the programming.
Correct.
They're certainly not in any significant way supplanting a district's funding of the athletic programs. And as Athletic Director Telch said, a lot of times it's focused on the more personal equipment heavy types of sports. So the impact of a pay-to-play, and as you initially framed it, if we were to replace our athletic budget with pay-to-play, that gives you some sense of what that would actually mean in terms of, is $460 to play middle school baseball, track, etc.
I think what it tells us is that you can't do that. You'd be actually closing shop, because even barring the most wealthy of people, nobody can afford $465 per kid to play anything. So really, it would be a measure of, if you reduce pay to play, as you said, Mr. Rensdale, it would be to subsidize it. Any committee member have any comment, Mr. Potter?
Yeah, I would never support pay to play. I would rather we use our expendable trusts before we do that. I think that for $3 million, we're getting a huge benefit to our students in terms of their lifelong health, the social and emotional abilities they get from playing on a team. It's a fantastic investment in the future of the community, and the amount that participation would drop by going to pay to play, especially among our most vulnerable students, would be significantly detrimental to the future of the city. And for that reason, I think we've got to find this money somewhere else if we can't get it through the general fund and the mayor's appropriation. But I will sit in the mayor's office for days until...
So, what I don't want to play games with this. This is not games, this is kids and their needs, and their sports isn't just for fun, as you pointed out, right? But the last time we had a significant budget issue in the city, we eliminated 160 staff. Ultimately, a net of about 110, 115, because some positions were found. But at that time, the board and the mayor were unwilling to contemplate the elimination of music and the bands. They were unwilling to complement the elimination of sports or pay to play. What they did do was decimate other programs. As an example, in middle schools where students had 2 periods a day of English, one reading and one writing, we eliminated one of those 2 periods. 50% less time for children to learn to read and write. And we did that because we could do it without the public going nuts. Obviously, it was an awful decision, but it was done. We eliminated middle school languages. I'll be fighting as hard as you, Mr. Potter, and everybody else to not allow this to happen. What I worry about is cuts get made in places that are not as obvious, so that we can pretend we're not doing the damage we're doing to the public school system. I am interested in not having controversy, but I'm interested in shining the bright light of day on special needs students not having the services they need, English language learners not having services, right? That's what and academics across the school district being affected. We are going to lose positions in the school district. There's no question about it. And they're not going to be gardeners, and not going to be, whatever else. They're going to be people in teaching positions. And we can do using the rainy day fund. Just to point out, last year we used $9 million in rainy day funds. You'll notice I've changed the word from trust funds to rainy day funds, because effectively that's what they are. This budget we sent to the mayor included $4.5 million of rainy day funds. That's $13.5 million that would have been paid for under the tax cap if the tax cap had been applied. Undoubtedly, we're going to dig deeper, I think, when we make decisions into rainy day funds, but that only lasts a certain amount of time. The city is sitting on $12.4 million worth of rainy day funds, which they decided not to use, not even a penny, not even $100,000. What I'm railing against, and you didn't come to listen to me to rail against stuff, but is that I want it out in the open, the extent of the damage done to our school district by eliminating the $9.5 million that we won't get. And we can see in this room how awful it would be and how painful it would be to eliminate sports in our city. Unconscionable. But we are going to make those levels of cuts And I just think that sports, music, the arts, theatre, all of it, special needs, because that's special needs, EL services, that's where it's going to get hit. But we're not going to get the same level of reaction from the public and the same pushback from people when there are special needs kids getting hit and getting their education damaged, as we will if we end up having cuts here. So just to be clear, I'm not advocating for it, and I'll join you in the mayor's office fighting for it, Mr. Potter. But this is a big deal for this city. It's the first time in, say, a generation, first time in 10 years at least, that this city, and for no good reasons, faced this. I'll stop there because I'm tempted to go further. Is there anybody got anything? And so we will be fighting for you guys and for our sports and for our students, and we'll see where the ball lands.